Hello everyone! In this video I will showcase my legend set, and here on the side I put some timestamps, cause first I want to introduce my team, which I've been in the top 100 of the leaderboard with for 3 days in the past week, before I got sick of the queue times and skydived to 2300 ELO with Shadow Tyranitar. I hit legend in Little Cup using a team of Shadow Wooper as a lead, and then in the back I used Chansey with Zen Headbutt and ducklett with wing attack and bubble beam and aerial ace, and both ducklett and Chansey can be used as safe switches. And the reason I don't use Brave Bird on ducklett is just cause I want better consistency and less baiting matchups. The Zen Headbutt on Chansey is interesting, since it's a rare move to see in my experience, even though I think it's better than Pound. Energy-wise and base damage-wise, it's almost exactly the same as Pound, but Pound do have same type attack bonus, which increase the damage dealt by 20%, so I think that's what everyone is thinking when they go Pound on their Chanseys, that it's just a stronger move. Zen Headbutt is marginally more efficient when it comes to sneaks and timing, because Zen Headbutt is a 3-turn fast move while Pound only takes 2 turns, and practically they are often equal in damage. In matchups where Pound deals 2 damage, Zen Headbutt typically deals 3 damage, resulting in the same damage output. However, that's not always the case. There are some niche matchups, for example Skarmory, where both fast moves are resisted, but Pound deals 1 damage while Zen Headbutt deals 2 damage, meaning that even though Zen Headbutt is the weaker move, it deals 33% more damage. That's not all. There are also a ton of poison types in the meta, where Zen Headbutt deals super effective damage and you don't have to worry about being countered by rock types or ghost types like Onyx and Drifloon. Also, there are pretty much no dark types in the meta, so Zen Headbutt is rarely resisted. So that's why I prefer Zen Headbutt on Chansey. And I should also mention that it's not always an equal move. There are quite a few matchups like Galarian Stunfisk and Shadow Skarmory where Pound is clearly better. Anyways, now it's time to showcase my legend set. My first opponent in this set is Zukon Bakon, and she leads with a Dwebble, so that's great for Wooper since I resist the smackdowns and I also outpace it to a charge move. And my opponent immediately switches into a ducklett with water gun, so I try to soften it up with a body slam, but they shield, which is great. So then I go into my own ducklett that has wing attack, so this should be a positive matchup, and I resist the water guns of course. Here I overcharge slightly so that I bait the Brave Bird, but my opponent does not fall for it. And then I am kinda scared for this Brave Bird, so I'm going to shield, but it turns out that they had aerial ace instead. But I really wanted to maintain switch advantage for my Wooper to go up against the Crustle, or the Dwebble of course. And then my opponent comes back in with a Dwebble. So here the X-Scissor is going to deal a ton of damage, but I'm going to survive and connect with a Mud Bomb, which deals a ton of damage back. And then I can farm down with Chansey. And Chansey with shields down is much stronger than a Chansey in the one shield scenario, because if I just connect with one Hyper Beam, that's going to be enough to take care of most Pokemon in the meta. So here is the ducklett again. I'm not going to use any charge move on this ducklett. I just want to farm up a ton of energy to have for my opponent's last Pokemon. But my opponent starts to debuff me over and over, so I try to reset my debuffs, but my opponent also switches at the same time, and it turns out that it's a Skrelp in the back. So it's a poison type and it's weak to Psychic, so I'm going to one-shot it with a Psychic, and then the ducklett in the back cannot do anything. Moving on to game number 2 against Cytochrome T, and they lead with a Cottony, and this is a terrible matchup for Wooper, so I want to switch, but first I'm going for one body slam, and the reason for this is that I want to put my opponent's Cottony into Psychic range. So now all of these Zen Headbutts plus 1 Psychic will be able to take down the Cottony, and if I had gone into Chansey immediately, then I would have to connect with a Hyper Beam instead. And that would have been a disaster if a Hyper Beam gets shielded, so then I lose so much energy, so that it's pretty much a losing position immediately then. But now the Cottony is down to half health in the back, and I will be able to deal with it with a body slam or with ducklett later in the game. So here Chansey is just trying to take down this Wooper, and my opponent spams out Mud Bombs, and Mud Bombs deal more damage than a body slam, but it's less energy efficient. So if you reach the same number of charge moves with Mud Bombs, then that's the better move, but if you reach one more body slam than if you had gone for Mud Bombs, then body slam is the better move to use. And of course my opponent overcharged some energy, because that's an easy thing to do against Chansey, since Chansey deals damage so slowly. And then my opponent comes back in with Cottony and I go straight for the aerial ace. My opponent probably tried to call it, that it was a bubble beam, since I did not have energy for the Brave Bird yet, and most people run Brave Bird. And then my opponent's last Pokemon in the back is a Gliscor, and at this point there's nothing my opponent can do. I will debuff and debuff again, and the only way that my opponent can win this game is if they have Earthquake and connect it onto Wooper, because a double debuffed Gligar is not going to be able to take down Wooper with just the Night Slash. And that's a GG. Moving on to game number 3 against Zico, and here they lead with a Skarmory, so once again a pretty bad matchup for Wooper since all of my moves are resisted, but at least I'm a Shadow Wooper, so my Mud Shots deals 2 damage instead of 1, and then I can catch my opponent's Sky Attack onto my Chansey after 7 Mud Shots, so I'm actually in a decent spot here, and my opponent even stays in. And here, this is one matchup where Zen Headbutt is much better than Pound, since my Pound would have dealt 1 damage each, but the Zen Headbutt deals 2 damage each. So effectively, Zen Headbutt is a weaker move, and both are resisted, but Zen Headbutt deals 33% more damage because of a breakpoint. So here, I just miscalculated. I expected to survive that Sky Attack, so I ended up just wasting an entire Hyper Beam, which was a pretty bad play by me, but it's still fine. My opponent has a Skrelp in the back, so I'm going for a bait, since they have 2 shields and are very likely to use one of them. And then I can go for the nuke with Mud Bomb, and then my opponent's last Pokemon is Wooper and my opponent resigns. Moving on to game number 4 against Siri, and here I'm completely hard countered in the lead because all of my moves are double resisted against the Drifloon. So I go straight into Ducklett and hope that they stay in, or that I can get my Chansey against the Drifloon later in the game, but they only stay in for 1 Icy Wind, so now I'm debuffed against this Wooper and I'm only down to half health. So at this point I know that I can absolutely not take the switch advantage, so I'm going to save 2 shields from my Chansey and hope that it can somehow sweep. At least I was able to bait the Brave Bird and get the shield from my opponent, and then they are forced to throw their energy here on Ducklett, since I'm not in farm down range with mud Shots. And then, since I don't expect this Wooper to do anything good against the Drifloon later in the game, I tank 1 Body Slam, and then I take down the opposing Wooper with my own Body Slam. And here I charge up to the next Body Slam before switching out, so that I can use it on my opponent's 3rd Pokemon at any point then later. But it turns out it's a Skrelp, so once again this is a matchup where Zen Headbutt is much better than Pound. So here I deal super effective damage and I'm forcing a shield, even though I'm debuffed. Psychic would hurt a bunch. And then I'm using my own shields on Chansey, since if it's a Sludge Bomb then it will deal more damage than what the Drifloon can do in the back. So at this point I'm in a pretty good spot, and my opponent switches back into Drifloon, so I go for a Psychic, and then I'm going to stay in using Zen Headbutts on this Drifloon until the Drifloon is down to Body Slam range. And as soon as my opponent throws their energy and now they are in Body Slam range, I'm going to switch into Wooper and use my Body Slam. And when this Drifloon is gone, then there's nothing that can stop Wooper and Chansey to defeat this Skrelp. So that's a GG. Moving on to the last game of the set against Onion Frank, and he leads with a Scrafty, so that's very cool to see. It's super hard to get a Scrafty below 500 CP for Little Cup, and that's why it's not that common, even though it's really good. So I can definitely not afford my Chansey to go up against it, so I will let my Wooper go down, and then I will deal with the Scrafty with my Ducklett. And my opponent is actually double shielding, so they are thinking that they might be able to sweep with Scrafty. But that's not the case, since I have a pretty dominant matchup with my Ducklett against it. But then my opponent's 2nd Pokemon is a Shadow Golbat, so this seems to be a very cool team. At least my Zen Headbutts are dealing super effective damage now, so Chansey will get some value. But also these Poison Fangs are starting to add up, and with every Poison Fang I get the defense fell, so the next Poison Fang will deal more damage, and then my opponent is even able to get off another one, so I don't want all of this energy to go to waste, but then the switch timer is up for my opponent but not for me, so I was just not able to reach the Hyper Beam or the switch in time. So now all of my faith is in Ducklett, and there is a Shadow Skarmory in the back, so there's no point in continuing that game. That's it for this video. If you like using Chansey in Little Cup, then you should definitely at least consider using Zen Headbutt on it. And here I went 4-1 to hit Legend, and I will leave you with the song that my father made, which I've played a few times before, but I like it and I don't have to worry about copyright. So thanks for watching!